it's usually, in days gone by, it's the biggest selling edition of the Sunday Times each year. Why are readers so interested in it? I think it's a couple of reasons. I think, firstly, a lot of people, not all of the people on this list, but a lot of people find some of these people on this list inspiring. Often this is largely about self-made wealth. These are people who started a business from scratch, perhaps from their bedroom, from their kitchen table, and grown it over the years into something that's worth at least, wait for it, £650 million, which is what you'd need to get into this year's rich list. But I think also there's a British fascination with wealth, isn't there? How the other half live, how they're doing, and I think that's a big part of it as well. But also there is perhaps a more serious point to this as well, which, we live in a democracy and we want to know where wealth lies and where it's being made.
Transparency argument there. Well, Robert, looking at that transparency, what did you see? What patterns did you see changing? Who's become rich? Who's lost the money? What happened over COVID?
Well, what we saw through COVID was that online retailers did extremely well. People like Boohoo, the fast fashion retailer, the Hut Group, THG, did very, very well. Their high street competition was closed, so people headed online. Perhaps some people were spending less money on commuting, less money on going out in bars and pubs. They couldn't do that, so they were spending their money online. Now, what happened when that opened up again? We had the great reopening. The high street retailers were doing well, and a lot of those online retailers were struggling. So there's been a passing of a baton there. The Russians really surprised me this year. I thought we'd see a big fall in their wealth. That simply hasn't happened, with the exception of Roman Abramovich, who's down an eye-watering, wait for it, £6 billion this year. The other Russians haven't suffered. Why is that? Well, a couple of reasons. Firstly, there's a world of difference between freezing assets and seizing assets. Lots of those oligarchs, lots of those wealthy Russians have lost the use of their nice super yachts and their London mansions and their country estates, but they're still the legal owners of them. Secondly, they already squirreled a lot of money away in Cyprus and the British Virgin Islands, places like that. And then thirdly, you remember the ruble crashed when Vladimir Putin's troops went into Ukraine? Well, the ruble's come back very, very strongly in the last few weeks, and it's in fact worth more against the pound than it was before the invasion. So these Ruskies who've got companies' assets in Russia, if we'd valued them a month or so ago, they would have been well down, whereas actually they've recovered, and recovered very strongly.
Now, we're talking about people who are very rich, some of them who've earned more money, whilst we're also living through the biggest cost of living crisis in 40 years. I'm just wondering, will the rich list go down well this year, or will it appear distasteful?
Well, we think it's incredibly important that we know where wealth is being made and where it's being accumulated. And if you try and silence that, you're sort of shutting out the argument. And I think a lot of people have got in touch, and I can see from the readers' comments that having the Chancellor of the Exchequer on the rich list for the first time, which we've finally been able to prove the wealth of his household, we think that probably demonstrates the importance of why we need to know about these sorts of things. As I say, some of these people are desperately inspiring. There are millions of small business people up and down the country who look at these people and think, yeah, I want to be on that list one day as well. But there are others who are taking the view, goodness me, wealth is out of control in this country. We need to be getting more out of these people. We need to be charging them perhaps more tax, think of other levies to extract their wealth, think about things like a wealth tax. And if we don't know how wealthy these people are, we can't inform the argument, can't inform the public debate. So I think there is a value, a very strong value for everyone in having this kind of research done.
Quite right. Rishi making the rich list has made all the papers. But I wonder, it's his wife's money and his wife's family's money. So I'm wondering why you're using his name when really it's her name.
Well, they're a joint entry. In fact, she comes first in the list, which you can read online now. It went live yesterday morning. We always have, for our 34 editions, we always have aggregated family wealth. When you're married to someone, the finances all get mixed up, don't they? You have a household earnings, and as you say, the vast amount of their wealth, or the majority of it, is down to a £690 million holding in Ms. Murty's father's company, Infosys, which is an Indian-based company. They have dividends of around about 10-11 million pounds a year from that. He did do pretty well himself. He was no slouch. He worked for Goldman Sachs. He was a hedge fund manager for some years, but the bulk of her wealth certainly comes from her.
Robert, they aggregate our wealth. I wonder what they'll get up to.
Not much. I don't think we'd feature highly. But I just wondered, Robert, how? I mean, as I understand it, these are minimum levels of their wealth, and I just wondered how easy it is for people to try and mask their wealth, so that you don't get your beady eyes on exactly what they've got just by sort of putting it all in a bank account, so you've got no idea what's in there. Does that happen, or are people proud for everybody to know how wealthy they are?
It's a real mix, Phil. I mean, this is a jigsaw puzzle that keeps me occupied through the year. 90% of the job is trawling through company accounts, shareholdings in public companies. But about a third of these people do talk to us and share information with us that wouldn't be necessarily out in the public domain. There's a big problem in terms of transparency. You're absolutely right. There are lots of people on the list. They have assets offshore that we simply can't see. There's some progress in terms of that, in terms of more places around the world making it easier for us to see that sort of financial information. But when people come to us, it is for a variety of reasons. I mean, some people feel the Sunday Times Rich List is a matter of public record, that they want their achievement, they feel, which is wrapped up with their business success, to be recognised and recognised properly. Other people, they want to live below the radar. They don't like publicity. They don't want any public profile whatsoever. But we think our readers deserve something that's as carefully researched and as complete and accurate as possible. But yes, pretty much our first rule in our rules of engagement is these are minimum estimates of these people's wealth based largely on what we can see.